Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first day of week 5, I believe. At least it's week 5 on my schedule. Hope you had a great weekend. I had a very busy one catching up on all the things. I hope that you can all see now on the e-class that things are a little more organized, that YouTube videos have been posted as well as audio has been posted for all of our lectures up to this point. Moving forward, I hope to be much more on top of things. No unplanned travel across the country, so that should allow me to do so. Quiz 4 has also been posted. So currently active right now are both Quiz 3 and Quiz 4. They are both due October 3rd, I think it is. And yeah, does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns about the state of the e-class or the online lectures or anything like that? Fantastic. That obviously means I'm doing an amazing job, and I will just continue doing exactly what I'm doing. So what are we doing today? Today, we're going to go over some readings, particularly the Euripides reading that I gave you, and we finished the Theogony. So this week's readings, it completes the Theogony. I should say, sorry, we don't finish with the Theogony today. We'll still continue to talk about it. But after this week, you won't have any more readings for it because you've already read the whole thing, right? So yeah, we'll go into some context of who Euripides was, and the specific reading and why I wanted you to read it. And then we'll talk about some sections within the Theogony, specifically around the nature of Zeus in power and what that means, or what that meant for Hesiod. A bunch of births, because that's kind of what's in that last little bit. And some interesting stuff about mortals in that section of the Theogony that are going to become more important as our weeks move forward. So, Euripides, who is he? He's another tragedian. He's another playwright. There is a kind of canonical 3 tragedians of Athenian playwriting. There is Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles. I'm going to do 2 out of 3 and mention the third, so I figure I've done my duty. He is just after Aeschylus in terms of relative chronology. Aeschylus dies, and I think he debuts a year later, something along those lines. So they are near contemporaries, but not quite. He's more of the next generation. He debuts around 455 BCE, and he doesn't win first prize in the city Dionysia, the Dionysia of Athens, that is this play competition. He doesn't win that until around 441. These dates are, different sources say different dates. Don't worry about it too much. Just know that it took him a little while. It took him a while before he managed to get first place. And he only gets first place 4 times in his lifetime. The other Aeschylus and Sophocles get first place more. But he does get first place once after he dies. He kind of gets the posthumous Oscar, which is somewhat interesting. And generally speaking, during his lifetime, he had a rivalry with Sophocles. So these 2 tragedians are kind of squaring off against each other. They write similar plays, they have similar titles, and they're on similar content, and they will actually reference each other. It gets very meta. Later on in his life, he leaves the southern portion of Greece that we've focused on through most of this course, and he goes to live with the king of Macedon in Macedonia. So that is more to the north, somewhat outside of Greece proper, at least at that particular period in time. He has at least some authorities record that he had a rather tragic death, that he was mauled to death by the king's dogs. He was an old man, and I guess the dogs just got him, but that's just an unfortunate end to a tragedian. In his day, he was considered somewhat the lesser of the three. He was less popular. He won a lot more second or third place finishes than first place finishes. However, after his death, he grew in popularity. And he grew in popularity to such an extent that we have more of his plays than we have of the other playwrights. In fact, I think I read this, that we have more of his plays than Sophocles and Aeschylus combined. And that is an artifact of preservation. Because Euripides was read more in the intervening centuries and was more popular, his plays got copied with more frequency and with more focus and attention. And so we lost more plays from the other playwrights. Some notable works that he wrote. Alcestis. This is our earliest extant Euripidean play. And it's interesting because it's a satyr play. So if you remember, I was talking about the city Dionysia, and the competition was you did 3 plays and then a fourth one, a satyr play. So with Aeschylus, he was very fond of linking the narrative of those 3 plays into a formal trilogy. Euripides, not that he didn't do it, but it was less of a focus. But regardless, Alcestis, it's a satyr play. It's one of those other ones, the fourth one. His play on Medea. Medea is a tragic figure in Greek myth. We will talk about Medea a lot, especially not only in our coming weeks in the Greek section of the course, but also in the Roman section of the course. And the tragedy of Medea is that her kids die. And it is alleged in our ancient sources that the narrative used to be the kids die by, I think it's the people of Corinth. They kill them. But Euripides' Medea kills her own kids. And this, I don't know, increases the dramatic tension, increases the tragedy of the play. But it's another one of these scenarios where mythology becomes recontextualized. Mythology gets rewritten within the lifetime of one individual, and then it becomes the standard narrative. If you know anything about Medea today, you know she killed her kids. And it is entirely possible that was a construct of Euripides. Another notable work is a play about Electra, another mythological character. She's featured in a lot of plays. In fact, I think all of the tragedians did an Electra play. But that features matricide, killing your mom. So these plays are intricately linked with our mythological stories, and these people just do the worst stuff. You know, maybe have a little bit of sympathy. I didn't express a whole lot of sympathy towards Plato and his censorship last time, but maybe if everything that you watch is involving murdering your close family members or other horrible activities, I guess perhaps it's time to think about some different narratives. So that's Euripides. I'm going to jump into the play, or the fragment of the play. This is just an excerpt. And the context. Melanippe has been imprisoned by her dad. And she's been imprisoned by her dad because she dared to, it doesn't say this explicitly, but I believe that it is the subtext, she dared to allow herself to get raped. And this is, again, not the modern way of viewing how things are. But Melanippe, Euripides gives Melanippe this speech to talk about the criticism of women. It starts off, in vain, the criticism of men against women shoots a pointless arrow and speaks ill. They, meaning women, are better than men, and I will prove it. So this is a rhetorical line, opening up. Unfortunately, we've lost some of the lines here, and so there's no reconstruction. But moving into what women do and why they're better than men. They manage households and preserve what is brought by sea within their houses. And without a woman, a house is neither neat nor prosperous. With respect to divine matters, for I think them most important, we have the greater share. In the house of Philoebus, women prophesy the thought of Loxias. Around the sacred foundations of Dodona, by the holy oak, it is the female sex that conveys the will of Zeus to those from Greece who wish it. The rites done for the Moirai and the unnamed goddesses, it is not holy for them to be performed in the presence of men, but all rites benefit from the presence of women. That is the proper status of women with respect to divine matters. Why then must the womanly sex be spoken of badly? Will the pointless criticisms by men, uncertain text, never stop criticizing all women alike? If one wicked woman is found, I will distinguish them in my argument. There is nothing more wicked than a wicked woman, but there is nothing better in preeminence than a noble one. Their natures are different. So what do we have here? What are we seeing, especially in contrast to depictions of women before? Does anyone have any thoughts on what we've just read and what it's telling us about this author and this author's perspective on women and mythology, and then how that contrasts with the other authors that we've already read? Yeah. Yeah, I would say that this is definitely less negative. That is true. Yeah. Right. Okay. I mean, it's hard not to be more nuanced than every woman is bad, but yes, you're absolutely right. That is correct. Can I get anybody from the back? Everyone's hiding back there, I know. But if I could just pinpoint anybody at all want to say something about what I just read here? Please? Okay. Yeah. Wow, it's almost like you just read my next slide. So yes, you're exactly correct. Not quite that firm, those firm boundaries, but absolutely that line of thinking. So women have positive roles for Euripides. That's great. They can do household management. They do fiscal management. There was the inference there that the husband was in trade and a sailor, and the wife handles all of the money from this commerce. And they have a religious role. And in fact, their presence in religious rites is always a benefit to the religious rites, whereas there are some rites that men can't do or would make worse. So this is more positive, but it is firmly restricted. These are the delineated roles for women. This is where it is acceptable for them to exist and for them to do stuff. And they are punished, and that's not questioned. They're punished for the acts of men. She did not ravish herself. She did not have a choice, but she is still being punished. And so we are seeing, especially in contrast to our other authors, a more positive portrayal. But it is definitely not what we would consider a modern take. I wanted to use this source, particularly because we've talked a lot about women in our other sources, as a contrast. You might consider, and I'm going to flip to the next slide. Oh, right. Sorry, I'll get to that point. There is still an element of evil here for women. Nothing worse than a wicked woman. And so, even though not all women are wicked, the worst thing I can imagine is a wicked woman. So it is a more nuanced take, but it is not what we would call fantastically modern. And it is important to remember, Euripides is a dude, and he almost certainly did not ask a woman what she thought before writing this. He may be, we don't know, but he may be well-intentioned in wanting to speak positively about women, but ultimately he is ill-informed and very, very likely ill-concerned. He's not terribly interested in making sure he's accurately portraying women. All he wants to do is tell you how he views a good woman, or that most women are good because of this. And thus it is a patriarchal perspective. He's fine with men being in control of the whole system. And you can equate this with, you may have heard the term positive racism, where someone can say a judgmental and ignorant thing about a race, but since it's supposed to be a compliment, that's not a bad thing. Asians are good at math is a kind of a common thing. This is somewhat positive sexism. Oh yeah, you're a great woman. I love how you maintain the house and keep the bills in order. That kind of thing. Not a great pickup line in the modern day. Regardless, this is a firm contrast to our other authors, Hesiod and Simonides. So I had a point when I was on that other slide. I have forgotten it. Any questions, though, on Euripides and his portrayal of this particular woman in the mythological scene that they are in? Yeah. Yes. So Hesiod and Simonides are largely in the Archaic period. So the kind of the first period that we're talking about. And then Euripides, as well as Aeschylus and Sophocles, these playwrights are in the classical period. Aeschylus is right on the cusp of the classical period, and then Euripides and Sophocles are firmly within it. So yes, it is a later time period. And so this is important with our three key themes of the course. It is important to keep in mind that there are changing cultural contexts. There are changing reinterpretations, and mythology is not static. So yes, it's an important point to mention. Yes, at the back. Thank you. He definitely wrote this play for men. In terms of specific women being able to attend theater, I cannot remember. My gut says no, but that's not an informed statement. That is, I'll have to look that up and report back. Yeah. Uh, no, it's not a scandal. Definitely not a scandal. However, the fact that this play wasn't as popular as his other ones may indicate that the judges didn't necessarily think that talking about women in this positive sense is the greatest thing. So definitely not a scandal, but it may not have been great for his career at the time. Yeah.
It seems quite a luxury to be able to sit around and write plays all day. So is it a given that most of these playwrights feel wealthy? And if that's the case, then does their perspective on women differ in any great way from, say, about a man who's more of like a working man, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe more close to things like household work or physical labor?
Yeah, so definitely in all of our written sources, anytime, doesn't matter if they're a playwright or a historian, anything that is written from the ancient world is coming from an elite perspective. So this is definitely something, it's a good idea to bring up and something that we cannot forget. This is not everyone's experience. This is the experience of a class within a highly hierarchical society. So we presume that this would differ. His perspective and his writings would differ from the perspective of someone, say, that a fisherman or a merchant. Those would be different classes in and of themselves. But we don't know their perspective because we don't have preserved writings from them. This is one of the reasons why I love to do archaeology, because archaeology is one way of attempting to reconstruct the perspectives and worldview of these groups that are otherwise silent from our textual record. But yeah, so that's important to keep in mind. I couldn't tell you what the perspective of those other groups would be because we don't know. Okay, and the last one here.
Does the Roman class citizens even know how to read and write at this time?
Ancient literacy is a big question mark, and it's an open field of investigation. I do not know. So this is classical Athens. I do not know even the estimates of. I study the Roman period, so I know that literacy in the Roman period is intensely hotly debated. I'm on the side that thinks that there was a lot more literacy than is given credit for. But a very, very arm wavy estimation that is bandied about and it's not specific to 5th century Athens. It's just in general to pre-industrial societies. Is up to 10% of the populace would be literate. That is definitely not. Don't cite that in a paper. That is just a general arm wavy kind of idea. It is a minority. I believe that we can think of a society like classical Athens as, relatively speaking, more literate than perhaps, let's say, ancient Egypt, because in ancient Egypt, the writing system is intensely complicated, not tremendously standardized, and highly restricted to a priesthood. And so those factors restrict it even further. Same as earlier period when I talked about Linear B. So Linear B is an administrative writing system. No one's writing poetry in it. No one is doing their grocery list in Linear B. And so again, the literate society would be much smaller than that hypothetical 10%. Okay? Okay, so that's Euripides and Melanippe and a positive portrayal of women. Let's jump into the Theogony. Zeus has conquered all. He's in charge now. So how does he run the show? What does Zeus do, and is it different from those that came before him? So the blessed gods had done a hard piece of work, settled by force the question of rights with the Titans. Then at Gaia's suggestion, they pressed broad-browed Zeus, another one of those epithets, broad-browed. I guess a thick forehead makes you awesome. Broad-browed Zeus, the Olympian, to be their king and rule the immortals. And so Zeus dealt out their privileges and rights. Well, this is interesting right off the hop, and this contrasts with perspectives that we'd already seen. So what do we have? First of all, Hesiod is firmly in favor of might makes right. Zeus and the Olympians conquered, and by right of that conquest, they're in charge now, and it's totally cool. Additionally, Gaia, who is Zeus's grandma, but also was the one instigating the giants in the Gigantomachy. She is suggesting Zeus be king. So they appear to have reconciled. Everything seems fine. Might makes right, and might mends wounds. And one of my favorite lines of all time, it's good to be the king. Zeus dealt out the immortals, privileges and rights. So this tells us in this mythological world, this tells us that Hesiod expects a ruler to take things they want and be the source of legitimacy and power, privileges and rights. We learn a little bit about how Hesiod believes the world functions through this mythological story. But so far, nobody's gotten eaten yet. Now, king of the gods, Zeus has been crowned. Zeus made Metis his first wife. She's wiser than any god or any mortal man. Notice, not women, mortal man. And when she was about to deliver, as in she's pregnant and about to give birth, the owl-eyed goddess Athena, Zeus tricked her, again with the trickery, gulled her with crafty words, and remember, she is wiser than any other god, and he just stepped up and tricked her. And he stuffed her into his stomach, again with the eating. And he consulted with mom and dad, taking the advice of earth and starry heaven. They told him to do this so that no one but Zeus would hold the title of king, a king among the eternal gods. For it was predestined. This constant concern about being supplanted by the next generation. That very wise children would be born from Metis. And the first is gray-eyed girl, Tritagenia. This is Athena. It's just another name for Athena. The footnote there tells you it's Athena in the actual textbook. Equal to her father in strength and wisdom, but then a son with an arrogant heart, who would one day be king of the gods and men. But again, in repetition here, Zeus stuffed the goddess into his stomach first, so that she would devise with him good and evil both. He actually absorbs her. He gains her knowledge and ability. Again, this Mega Man idea of defeating the boss and getting their power. So what do we have for reoccurring themes? Usurpation, fear of the next generation. They're always out to get you. Worry about your kids. This is a far cry from today, where we're always worried about the children. This is the constant refrain. Somebody think of the children. And Zeus consults with his parents. Again, he's consulting with people he was previously at war with. One second. And now they're just giving him advice, like, oh yeah, you know what? Got to eat it. And consumption, down the hatch. Again, the idea of eating your problems away. I mean, I guess this is kind of like emotional eating. Yeah, and you had a question there? Or his grandparents, yeah. Yes, his grandparents, not his parents. Right, because grandparents are okay. So what's different, though?
Although America is the greatest nation in the world, we still face many modern problems. And modern problems require modern solutions.
So what's the new twist? No rocks, no castrations. You don't wait for the birth to happen and then be fooled later. She's still pregnant, and you just stuff her in your stomach. This is a foolproof plan. Can't go wrong. Except, from his own head, he gave birth to owl-eyed Athena. the awesome, battle-rousing, army-leading, untiring lady whose pleasure in fighting and the metallic din of war. Hera, furious that her husband just gave birth out of his head, bore a child without making love. Glorious Hephaestus, the finest artisan of all the Oranians. So she just spontaneously generates a kid. How dare you give birth out of your forehead, wide-browed Zeus? This is a fantastic story because we see it in art. So here, we have a rather large amphora. And then right there is a depiction of the birth of Athena. So we can see here Zeus is seated, and you can tell it's Zeus because he's just holding some lightning bolts. That's what those are. That's an attribute of Zeus. If you ever see somebody, and you may have seen it as well on the Jupiter giant columns, he's riding a horse, and in his hand he's got a string of lightning bolts, just like that. What's that? What's that right up there? I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Fortunately, the image is quite low resolution. But yeah, Athena, just popping right out of there, fully armed and ready for battle. Other depictions, other artistic depictions, modern. I really like this one because Zeus kind of looks like a zombie. But again, this one has the martial attributes, but this artist has chosen to also add the philosophical side as well. And Athena is this character that has both. She is actually the best. She has, in Hesiod's view, the wisdom of Zeus, the martial prowess of the greatest fighter, and she's a woman. This is so weird from Hesiod, like that he would do this, right? But of course, this is the myth. Hesiod is ostensibly, as far as we know, not inventing this myth. He's recounting it to us. Another depiction. This one's really amazing looking. So again, Zeus has that bundle of lightning bolts, and Athena is not just popping out. I mean, she looks like she's ready for Broadway right there. So, in a way, Zeus had a foolproof plan. Eat your wife. No problem with kids. And it kind of worked, and it kind of didn't. So it didn't work because the kids were born, or at least one kid, Athena, was born anyway. But she's a woman. She has all of these traits that Hesiod explicitly describes as masculine. So effectively, she's a beautiful dude. But you have no concern over being overthrown. A woman can't be king. It's fine. So you've got this awesome child, but you do not have to worry about them usurping your throne as the next in line. So it kind of worked. Yeah.
In the, like a couple of slides ago in the past, it's right when he was, I guess it said, created his first wife, Metis, but then like a few lines later refers to Hera referring to her husband.
Zeus is not against the idea of multiple marriages. And like Henry VIII would have liked to do, presumably, eating your wife is like an annulment. It's like, okay, no more wife. I ate her. He actually gets married several times in this section. I'm not going to read the entirety of the assigned reading. But yeah, Zeus, in addition to having many liaisons with women, and we will go over that in a moment, Zeus also has several marriages. So that's, I don't know if we can say something about, because Zeus is effectively an allegory for rulers in Hesiod's mind of Hesiod's day. And so this may tell us something about Hesiod's view on rulership, and perhaps they cycle through wives as well. Yeah, that tracks.
I just kind of because that's just if he's about to make his first wife, but he's already there.
Well, so this is that backward storytelling of Hesiod where everyone knows Zeus is married to Hera when Hesiod is writing. And so Hera is Zeus's wife. However, he had wives before that, and here's a list of them and what happened to them and what's going on. So this is the confusing aspect to us in the modern day because we lack that cultural context. But it is a scenario where, for Hesiod's audience, at least he is presuming they know who Zeus is married to now, and these are just kind of the additional tales. I don't see any hand. If I missed your hand, please come up afterwards or send me an email. So, we also have numerous births. I did not go through and read all of these births out to you, but you do have to read them. Yeah. No, so every mythographer, every person who's writing in the ancient world will change up the genealogy a little bit. If I remember correctly, if you look in the front of your textbook, it'll tell you the most common relationships. There's actually a genealogical chart, and I think it's his sister in the most common one. But as we've seen, that's fine. That's par for the course. Doing your sister, doing your mom, I mean, murdering them afterwards, eating them. Yeah, it's fine. Just par for the course. So we get numerous births. There's so many gods being born towards the end of the Theogony. We get Olympian gods. We get the origins of Hermes and Ares and a few others. There are other gods. So I've put Dionysus as another god. He generally also gets put into the Olympians. I just wanted to talk about Dionysus because he's really cool. But we get the origins, an origin of Dionysus. If you remember correctly from the previous lecture, Dionysus is born and dies on a few occasions. And then we also get these other kind of divine characters, these immortals, but their status is a little lesser. The Graces, the Muses, there's a whole bunch of them. Many, many people are born towards the end of the Theogony. And I mean, you can see kind of what's going on there. I'm going to try and change the audio here because Zeus got busy.
Time out! What have we here? Matching uniforms? Oh no. Elastigirl? You married Elastigirl? And got busy! It's a whole family of supers! Looks like I've hit the jackpot! Oh, this is just too good!
And this idea of there's a whole group of immortals, and not all of them are obviously the children of Zeus, but he's involved in most things. He's also involved in making mortals. He has sex with everyone. So here's the name that I couldn't remember the other day. Cadmos' daughter Semele bore to Zeus this is Dionysus' origin, so this is not an immortal. But Semele was a mortal. A splendid son after they mingled and loved, laughing Dionysus, a mortal woman giving birth to a god. But they're both divine now. Now that's interesting. She was mortal, and now she's divine. Another Dionysus story. Gold-haired Dionysus made blonde Ariadne, Minos' daughter, his blossoming wife. And Cronion made her deathless and ageless. Ariadne was a mortal, and was a mortal, and now she's an immortal, gaining divinity. Alcmene gave birth to the might of Hercules, or Heracles. After mingling in love with cloud-herding Zeus, another one of these epithets. Broad-browed, cloud-herding. What more could you want in a man? And Heracles, Alcmene's mighty son, finished with all his agonizing labors, made Hebe his bride on snowy Olympus, daughter of Zeus and gold-sandaled Hera, made bride. I think she's daughter of Zeus and gold-sandaled Hera. Yeah, happy at last, his great work done. So in this instance, she's divine, he's a mortal. However, his great work done, he lives agelessly and at ease among the immortals. So he gains divinity. If you are a character in mythology, you can be granted immortality. You can start as a mortal and you can become immortal. These figures, many of them, are semi-divine even when they're mortal, Heracles being one of them. And these are heroes. And we are going to get into heroes and their exploits next week and for a few weeks afterwards. They are the mortal offspring of gods, usually Zeus, but not always. And as Heracles shows, they could be made fully divine. So these are special people. These are superheroes. They're more like villains, though, if you kind of read the stories, and we'll get into that. But I just wanted to kind of bring this up as we're starting into a broader pantheon of not just our titans, not just our giants, and not just our Olympians, but their many offspring in different areas, including some mortals. So, what did we do today? We talked about Euripides' different take on women. We compared it explicitly with other sources we've looked at and realized that it is better, but not necessarily entirely modern. The Theogony, assuming that you've done the readings for this week, or by the end of this week you will have done them, is complete. And you have read the entirety of an ancient piece of literature. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty exciting. You can say, oh, I've read a book this week and it was older than everything you've ever read combined. Zeus firmly in control of the divine world. And that is the state of things moving forward from Hesiod's day onward. Zeus is in control. He stopped the cycle of being overthrown. Plan kind of worked. Mortals can become divine. They can start off in one state and grow to another. And we've introduced the concept of Greek heroes. Thanks for your time. Ending a little bit earlier today. See you again on Wednesday.